joining us today for another episode of What's Your Why Wednesday. Today, I am joined by the fabulous Fobby Naghmi. He is the National Sales Manager at First Option Mortgage. All right, Fobby.
Hey.
We're diving in here, all right? We're getting deep. Okay.
How you doing, Laura?
I'm doing very
You're
well.
scaring me with that look.
I know, it's like I'm like an evil scientist over
I know,
here, right?
Like, what's going on here? What did I just sign up for?
All right. So, Fobby, we mostly all came into the mortgage industry by accident, but we stayed in the industry because it's tied to our personal and professional why. So at this time, I would love to ask you, what is your why?
That's a good question, Laura, and way to kick off the interview.
Right to the heart.
Right to the heart, right? You know, I got to be honest with you. I think the why is always changing.
I agree with that. Yes.
I don't think you can have the same why after what? I'm coming up on 29 years in the business, right? January 3rd will be 29 years for me. So yeah, the why has changed a lot. Obviously, look, January 3rd, 1994, when I got in the business, my wife and I were expecting our first kid. And so there was my why, right? I had to support, right? My wife was a stay-at-home mother, so I had to support. I had to be the breadwinner. You know, when I opened up my first mortgage company, the why was probably different because I was trying to create something much larger than what I was. You know, and I wanted to go beyond my own limitations as a salesperson and to see if I could really scale what I had learned as a loan officer and bring it into a company setting, and to see if that could really work. I think going into and working with different lenders over the past several years, the why changes as it needs to, you know what I mean? Because there has to be a motivation to get up every morning. Because look, I mean, Laura, both you and I have, you know, I'm sure there's mornings I know I wake up where I was like, do I need to do this again? Do I really?
But I think that ties to our why, right? And it's interesting, Fobby. Every person that I've asked that question to, depending on where you are in your career, anyone that's been in it 20 years or more started their answer exactly like you did. They've all said, and that's why I'm smiling, because I'm thinking to myself, this is so typical, right? That you're correct. We all, when we first, you know, if we've been doing it a long time like us, yes, our motivation in the beginning, it was our family. It was taking care of our kids. It was buying a house. It was putting that roof over the head. It was all of that, right? And I agree with you. I mean, if you ask me the same question, when I started AFR Wholesale, I, just like you, I wanted to grow something big and I wanted something that was my own. And I wanted to, and now we're at another stage of our life, right? And you're correct. It's different. Now it's more, I mean, I can speak for myself. Now it's a lot of legacy. Now it's making that difference.
I will tell you one thing, and I've said this before. I know we all talk about the why, right? And I knew that's your title of your podcast, all that. But there's something a little bit deeper.
Tell me.
I think it's important when we recognize when we got that why. That moment. Because there's moments in my life that I know will always be ingrained in my head. Like, oh my God, that's what happened. So I'll tell you, I was a musician, right? And that's why I got in the mortgage business, right? Because they said you could control your own hours, which is absolute lies.
Yeah, the hours are 24/7. Right. Those are the hours.
You control how you view it, is what they should have said. So I came home from a gig. It was like 2:30 in the morning. And it was, I don't know, maybe February of 96, somewhere around there, maybe. So I had a couple of years in the business, and my wife was standing on the top of our stairway with our then daughter, who was about a year and 2 months old, or a year and 3 years old, 3 months, right, somewhere around there. And she's like, "What are you doing?"
Right.
Like, you're going to get paid $60 for the show you did tonight. You're going to sleep for 3 hours. You're going to be at the office and take your loan apps in the morning. What are you doing? And I remember going to a friend of mine that actually afternoon and saying, I'm going to give up playing music But if I'm going to give up playing music, I want to be the best mortgage person out there in the industry. I'm not going to give up music just to be another average Joe.
Yep.
And I just met, that was like really serious. Like that's the moment that I got my real why. If you want, you know what I mean?
Yes.
So I always like to remember those anchors. That's what I call those anchors.
And anchor is a really, really good word. And it's interesting. You know, I read a book a few months ago called from Jordan Peterson. Have you ever read the book about the 12 rules? And he speaks, you have to read this book. It's a really interesting book about the 12 rules about life. And he refers to it as your mission. So your mission is it's those anchors. That's the anchors, right? So all of that is 100% correct, but none of us, we know, many people come into our industry, but you only stay in the industry if it's part of your mission or your why or how it affects everything around you. Otherwise, you're going to bail. You're going to say, wait a minute, there's too much emotion in this industry. There's too many highs and lows and cycles and everything else, right? So I think those anchors, you're right. That is what ties us. And it's those moments. And those moments, like you said, we can all remember the exact moment. We can remember, what happened and what caused us to do that. And I love that. And speaking of moments, so Fobby, one of the questions that I ask, and I love this question because everyone has such wonderful stories. I would love for you to share. Give us one of those moments in your career where you realized the monumental impact that you have on others. Whether it's a family you helped and you worked with, or whether it's a team where you saw people kind of go through a metamorphosis and have a life changing because of the opportunity, please share one of those moments with us.
God, I mean, there's a lot of them. There really is. I mean, it's interesting, Laura, when you and I first met back in 2019 and I was on the panel and you were questioning us. And there was a story I had written in one of the magazines. There was one of those moments about helping a family. And you probably don't remember, but I do. You know what I mean? So there are so many different moments. And I'm trying to think like what really changed. Like, I think it was right after that moment of when with my wife.
Yeah.
Shortly thereafter, because there was, I think 96 was probably a very mind-opening year for me.
Okay.
I definitely could say that 96 probably grounded me into the mortgage industry. Like, I'm going to stay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there was a family that I was helping. And if you remember, I don't know, you were probably around those days.
Yeah.
People would come in and bring their conditions to you.
Oh, yeah.
And they were under the copy machine and whatever, right? And so this parent had brought in, they had their kid with them. And these were the final conditions. They were trying to close. And I was running to the copy machine. It was like close to the end of the month, Laura, so there's craziness going on. And I got back and I was like, okay, you're ready to go. We'll get you this thing signed off tomorrow morning. And hope I get you to close the next day. And the little kid freezes me and says, Mr. Naghmi, does this mean I get my own bedroom?
Oh.
For me, I can still, and I'm sure the kid's like 30 something by now. Right?
Yes, that kid now has 4 children of his own.
But that froze me. It literally froze me. And I kept thinking about it for the rest of the night. To this kid, it's not about the numbers that I'm trying to achieve. It's not about that I'm going to get the loan cleared to close or that his father's going to be a homeowner. He gets to have his own room and not share with whatever sibling he may have been sharing a bedroom with. He's going to have his own room. And I was like, oh my God, this industry's killing me.
And that's how it sucks you in, right? That's how it keeps us here, right?
Yeah, and there's been other moments that have been similar to that. You know what I mean? Even recently, one of my managers, I know he wouldn't mind me talking about him. He's Chicago manager, Brian, and he called me up and says, Fob, this last year working with you has just been like really amazing because you're making me do things that other managers have never asked me to do before. Oh. He's been in the business 20 some odd years. A great guy. I love the guy. But we're pushing each other.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And we're holding each other accountable. And I think that's part of the business where we don't really, what's the right way to say this? Like, you know, you don't know the feeling of helping another mortgage person succeed and get beyond their challenges until you do it.
Agreed.
And then it's like, oh my God, this is even better than my own goals that I may have for myself.
Absolutely. And it's interesting that I recently read something about the effects of generational wealth on individuals. And that story of what you mentioned about the child having his own bedroom, you got to understand that moment in time was just multiplied through generations, because that child now knows what it's like to have their own home, right? To have a home that the parents were able to purchase. And when that child grew up, that child automatically in his brain thought, I buy a home. Like that's just part of the process, right? I save, I go get a mortgage, I buy a home. And that next generation. And literally every single time that we help a family, it's not just one, it's multiplied by all of the rest of those generations.
I think there, for me, and I can only speak from my perspective and my experience, but being an immigrant and then helping the immigrant communities, that was actually, for me, was like, because of the language barriers. Being able to actually bridge the gap, the communication gap, so they could feel comfortable asking questions like, hey, what's my rate? You know, is mortgage insurance really required? Those simple questions, they would feel uncomfortable if they had to actually speak English.
Of course. They would hold back. They would think that they didn't say it right, or that they sound ignorant if they had to ask that.
And it's like that saying that, you know, I don't hear as much anymore, but I know that it's like, if you got asked the price, you can't afford it. That mentality that they got, especially for the immigrants, where they don't want to seem like they can't afford a payment of $840 a month for a mortgage back in those days, or $1,200.
They have a lot of pride. They have a lot of pride, and that culture, all immigrant culture, because my in-laws are from Portugal, and I know they think the same way too. Is that no, they don't want anyone to see them as that way. So you're right, Fobby. That's the whole reason why it's so important to have that diversity within our industry of all shapes, sizes, ethnicity, cultures, everything, because people do feel more comfortable looking at someone or speaking in the same language that they are.
Absolutely. And then, just like I said, I mean, bridging that gap with communication is critical, because you can understand culturally where they're coming from. You can see the reservation. I can hear the tones in their voice. You know what I mean? And I can also understand when they're upset. But they're trying to be polite and being upset.
Exactly.
So there's that give and take. And but it works both ways. They also know when I'm not going to negotiate anymore.
That too.
You're not doing my voice.
That is true. It works both ways.
It works both ways. So they understand that, okay, we've reached the end here. He's not going to bend anymore.
That's awesome. All right, Fobby. So we learned how you came in. We learned some of the different stages that you've gone throughout your career. We've talked about the impact that you've made. And now my last question, which kind of takes us to a little further down the road. What do you want your legacy to be? What do you want to be? What do you want to leave behind to our wonderful industry?
You know, I don't know if I could define that, honestly. I don't know if I could really say, hey, Laura, this is what I'm thinking, A, B, and C. Like, it's not like my 2022 goal, right?
That just means you haven't thought about it yet, Fobby.
No, actually I did. Okay. And, you know, in the book, Falling Forward, I actually talked about that. And it's interesting because I think somewhere in your book or somewhere I read about you, you had the same, 2018 was a year. It was. And
I read that in your book. I was like, man, what was going on in 18 that we were all
like, we were like thinking about something future down the road, like, hey, when I leave, when I walk away, what do I leave behind?
Correct.
I mean, I hope that the first word that comes to my mind is laughter.
Oh.
You know, I hope that people just know that you know, no matter what I did, I try to make it fun. I try to have laughters. throughout my entire career. And
I love that. You don't hear that enough, Fobby. And that's why I really think that's fabulous, because it's so important in our lives.
Yeah. I mean, because we have to have laughter. I mean, laughter is just critical, especially in our industry. If you can't laugh in our industry, you're going to go crazy.
You are.
You know, and I think, you know, laughter is definitely one of them. I think from what I'm hearing that people talk about me is that I try to support people, you know, that I don't try to just bring people on board and just expect them to do something that I'm not going to go shoulder to shoulder with them on. You know, obviously, look, writing books, Laura, as you know, is becoming part of our legacy.
Yes.
You know, I mean, you've got books. I've got my first one out. I'm working on my second one now. I think that becomes part of our legacy on how the, you know, will be looked at. But definitely, I think overall, just laughter. I mean, when I really think about that, I just want people to know that I try to make it a little bit better on laughing, on the humor part. That's
I love that. I love that. And I think that is you. I think that's genuinely you, right? Like that is, it's not what people may want to hear. It's honestly who you are and what you believe in. And I think all of us take ourselves a little too serious sometimes.
Yeah.
So I agree with you that it should be fun, and we do need to have laughter, and we can't be afraid to share our laughter or laugh at ourselves even, or even laugh at ourselves, right?
That's the best laugh that I get every single day, when I actually look at myself and say, oh my God, how am I doing this every day?
Well,
if they only knew.
Yeah, I got tape holding this together, and I've got this going on. Don't tell anyone. I love it. Well, Fobby, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a lot of fun, and we appreciate your insights, and all the best always.
Thank you, Laura.
Take care.
Good day.